Of the day. Who do we have, Alexa?
Leaving the best to the last, please welcome Denny Daniel, Head of Training and Certification, ASEAN, AWS.
Thank you, Alexa. I like it. Awesome. This is the first time I've been welcomed by Alexa. And obviously, thank you for putting your hands together. Appreciate the time you've taken to be in this session, because I know this is between the session and the beer. So cocktail is happening right after this. Since you've taken the time, I'm hoping that you make the most out of this session. So this session is going to focus on how to get the most out of the AWS cloud investments. All right? And I'm going to talk about training and certification, which is a key component in this cloud adoption journey. We all know innovation is changing the world really fast. All right? So if you look at many of the speeches that you attended today, talked about new features and services that AWS is constantly launching. And a lot of various customers are actually innovating and doing some interesting things. I was actually behind the scene just now when I was listening to the previous speaker, some of the interesting stuff the universities are doing. AWS, what we do is we're really good at listening to our customers and understanding what they need and innovating on their behalf. So you may have seen the slide before. This is the pace of innovation. So when we started early in the 2010, as you notice here, we had like 61 new features released that year. Fast forward it, we've got 1,400 odd new features and services released in 2017. And we've got a tech conference coming up in December. That's where we announce how many new features and services we released in 2018. And I'm going to see this graph going upwards, all right, based on the interesting new things that they've launched this year. So this is great for customers who want to continuously innovate using the new technologies and services that we offer, because we are inventing on your behalf, so you can focus on running your business, building new things for your customers, right? But this particular pace of innovation also introduces a new challenge. And the challenge being a shortage of talented people out there in the industry who know how to use these new features and services and build innovative solutions. So there is a huge shortage of skills. But customers want to move applications quickly. Gone are the days where we talk about doing a migration that takes weeks and months. Now we're talking about folks wanting to do this migration in a matter of few weeks or even days. So we need people with the right skills, and that is what I'm going to address today in my session. This is more about skills development or skills. How do we address this shortage of skills? Now, some organizations take the approach of trying to find these talents elsewhere, which means you're going to go out and try hiring these resources or these talented people. Some believe in investing time and money to build their existing talent pool. Now, having said that, if you decide to go either way, you just need to take note. There is a shortage of skills. You may not even find talented people elsewhere. They say, I'm going to look for those precious stones. Those stones are really precious. You can't find them that easily. All right? So you need to have a strategy, a dual strategy. A strategy where you may go and look for some specialist skills from the workforce, and also think about building that skills internally within the organization. If you look at the top 10 certifications, IT certifications worldwide, you will see the AWS certification in the top 3. There is a huge shortage of skills, and that's also fueling a higher salary for these jobs. So sometimes certain organizations might decide to just train their internal people and put together a strategy on how to retain them after training, instead of going and looking for people elsewhere. And it's also important to realize that people who are working for you have been part of your culture for a long time. All right? So some organizations choose to train those internal people and retain them, compared to bringing somebody from outside and trying to get them into this new culture or that organization culture. And also, if you look at IT, it's no longer just about pure IT. You may realize that if you're part of an IT team, you may realize that you no longer just talk about infrastructure, but you're talking about how it transforms the business. You are the transformation agent. Business owners look at you from the IT department to share how they can transform their businesses and be more agile and be more innovative. So the conversation has changed over the years. In these olden days, like in 2015 that you see here, we had a lot of physical data centers. But that number of data centers, the footprint is shrinking year over year. Look at 2018. So the traditional IT infrastructure, the data centers, the racking and stacking and all of that stuff is declining. So are the jobs. So are the skills. If it's declining, we don't need people who know how to plug a cable. But we need people who know how to go into an AWS console, set up an infrastructure in a matter of few minutes. All right? So the skills gap is increasing as well. So I highly encourage you to start looking at, if you are going through a digital transformation, also think about people transformation as part of it. And build a strategy around how are you going to transform your existing talents or source new talents. IT professionals, like I'm one of them, I love to keep my skills up to date. And we did a survey through one of our training partners in US, and this is their finding. 79% of the respondents said the most important reason of taking training was to build new skills. Many organizations are starting to realize this because this is one of the ways to retain your talents. You don't skill them up, you don't retrain them for the new jobs. Guess what? They're going to go somewhere else. Who's going to give them that opportunity? Contrary to our belief in the past, where we say, hey, if I train this person is going to leave and go elsewhere. Yes, this person will leave and go elsewhere if you don't have a very clear plan for this person on how he or she is going to utilize that skill within that organization and build their profile up. And that was a result of another study that we did. If you look at to your right, that says 78% of employees are less likely to leave the companies after training if they know how they're going to use the new skill that they've learned. Put yourself into their shoes for a minute. You've spent in that time and effort to go through this learning process, but when you go back to the office, you're not able to use that skill. But there is a strong demand for the skill elsewhere, so I'm going to move on. So I highly encourage you to think about, not just training people, but having a plan in place to retain those talents within the organization. Now, training and certification does improve job effectiveness, and that is the study that was done, and says 73% of the respondents felt that it improved their job effectiveness. Now, it's not rocket science. Everybody knows that, right? Because there is one way of learning, which is trial and error. We spend a lot of time trying things on your own and learning from that. The time it takes to get that done could be reduced if you go for a structured training where you learn from the experts and then go and experiment based on what you've learned. We're talking about agility, right? We need to also think about agility of acquiring and retaining these new skills. We did a survey with IDC. This was a study, research study that was done, where we spoke to the organizations that had the structured training plan for those employees. And these are the findings. 80% of them were able to move to cloud much faster than they expected. 2.7x more likely to realize cloud can jumpstart innovation. Let me pause there for a minute. When you train people, you're reducing the fear element for them to go and experiment new things. The fear of unknown. Because when you go through the learning process, you are given the actual environment, which is the AWS console, where you get to build things, where you get to break things, and try things out firsthand. It's not a simulation. It's the actual environment. And as you get your hands more dirty on that, and you try more new things, it takes away that fear element, which then allows them to go back and experiment more. And experimentation is key. Without experimentation, there is no innovation. I've seen many companies and customers, instead of putting in all the energy and budgets into one single project, what they're now doing is, because cloud gives them the accessibility of all these resources, they're doing 10 different projects. In other words, they're experimenting 10 different ideas that came from those teams. And out of those 10 different experiments, let's say 5 of them fail. That's fine. You've just learned some new things. Some of those ideas are validated, but the other 5 could become your new line of business and new line of products. Every single business is starting to think about building innovation centers. Some of you might already have it. And that's where the experimentation really happens. And giving the people the right skills and taking out that fear element from them is going to help organizations to not just innovate, but also, as you see the last one, reduce operational issues and performance issues. And if you are taking that cloud journey, if you're just getting started, some of you might be in stage 1 in this slide. Now, let me rule out stage 1 because you are here in this room with me. I'm assuming that you are interested in AWS Cloud. So let's look at number 2, educating themselves about the cloud models, evaluating different approaches, look at what specific workloads do we have, how does that fit in, and then going on to experiment and finally eventually deploy. And you may eventually reach stage 7, where we have various customers who consider cloud as the de facto environment for every new applications that they want to build and deploy. They call it cloud first. So, new project, can it be deployed in the cloud? That's the first question. So once they've identified the environment where they want to run it, then they identify the people with the right skills to come and build that environment. So comprehensive training plan and a strategy is super important. And this is an example of a customer who didn't have it at the start. But when we spoke to them and we put together a complete, detailed skills development plan for every single employee within that IT department, which is made up of developers, architects, storage administrators, network administrators, system administrators. There are different job roles today. And the organization didn't want to let go these employees. They wanted to retrain them and place them into new job roles, which is relevant to the cloud. So all of that was done, and this is what happened. If you look at the y-axis, it shows the number of applications that they've deployed in the cloud. Initially, it was very low. Once the training was delivered, we started seeing the number of applications deployed in the cloud increasing. The fear element is gone, right? And you're giving them opportunity to experiment and innovate further. Now, keep in mind, this training is not just for technical people. This is also for business owners, because they need to understand the possibilities of AWS Cloud. So we have different types of courses, some that are more designed for business users or decision makers, and there are also technical courses that is designed for the technical teams. And we'll talk about some of those things as we go along. So leveraging existing staff would be your first strategy as you think of moving your applications to the cloud. Think about building these skills in-house, because they have a deep understanding of your current infrastructure. They also have a deep understanding of the business requirements, and they will be the right people to actually build some of these innovative applications. So I'll highly encourage you to start looking at building a strategy. We have teams who can work with you in helping doing this, all right? Whichever account manager that you're talking to, raise it up with them, saying you want to put together a learning strategy, or call it a skills transformation or people transformation strategy, and we can work with you in building those learning plans that is relevant to those people. We build role-based learning plans that's relevant to them now and relevant to what role they will be taking in future. So a storage architect or a network architect or a systems architect might eventually become a cloud architect. So we need to then build a learning strategy for them to execute on that. The developers that you have, say Java developers or PHP developers, they need to know how to develop applications using the APIs that we give you. So there is a learning path for them as well. You may have people within your organization who are keen to go into the big data space, data analytics space. There's a learning pathway available for them as well. So what we've done is, over the years, we have worked with various customers, and we've learned what kind of job roles do they set up to be successful in the cloud. We bring those learnings to you. So if you're just getting started, moving applications to the cloud, or you're thinking of moving more applications to the cloud in future, you have to think about restructuring some of your teams. Take up new job roles, and we can provide those advisory services and those guidance as you go through this process. But a couple of learnings that we have as we work with various customers is, first, we need to identify a leader who is willing to spearhead the training effort. So you need to identify a champion. You may be that champion within that organization. Your HR team or a learning team, if there is one, could be that champion who can work with us on that. So identify that person. We can run various types of workshops and sessions to create the excitement. Let's say if you are the CIO sitting in this room right now, and after attending all the session today, you've decided to go back and say, okay, I'm going to pick an application, I'm going to move that to the cloud. But you need the support of the team, right? How do you win the support of various other business units? So we can run sessions, call it awareness sessions, where you can invite all of them into a room, and we can talk to them about how AWS can help, how other customers are doing it, and then you can take the conversation forward internally. All right? So these are different sessions that you can actually, so creating an excitement about cloud is super important, and that would help break a lot of barriers, because there is a lot of mental barriers out there. People often ask this question, how secure is the cloud? But I've also seen customers who've gone past that questioning stage, and they are talking about, I know cloud is secure. What applications can I move to the cloud? So we can bring those learnings and we can share with you, we can break those mental barriers so that you can be more agile in your cloud adoption journey, if you will. So there are quite a number of resources that we have, and I'm going to go through some of those resources now. So when we talk about learning strategy, it's always a blended approach, right? There is some digital learning that you can do right from the get-go. Like if you go back home today, you can go into the website, aws.training, and there's online training resources available, bite-sized learning materials. You can then look at attending some of the classroom trainings, which goes deeper with hands-on labs. And then certifications are a way to validate the skills that you've acquired through these trainings. So let me start with talking about digital training a little bit more in detail. So we've got hundreds of courses available at no cost on the AWS digital training platform. The way you would access that is, remember this URL, aws.training. Go there, create an account, go and start watching those videos. Learn some of those interesting topics that's relevant to you. We have different categories of videos. You can pick one that's relevant to you. So you can kickstart your learning by looking at some of these resources. But then when you take the next stage, which is, I want to go deeper. I'm a developer. I want to learn courses relevant to me. No, I'm an administrator. I want to know how to manage this application once it's deployed on AWS. Or I'm an architect. I want to know how to design this application. And that's what you can learn when you come into a classroom training environment. And many of these classroom trainings range from 1 day to 3 days with hands-on labs. They are taught by AWS experts. And you can talk to them, you can ask your questions, you can clarify your doubts. Do a knowledge dump, learn from them, bring it back, continue to experiment and learn more from it. So there is a lot of resources available. I just want to quickly talk about the key takeaways. The designers, we call the design the architects. So I use the analogy of building a house. so that you can remember this better. Before you build a house, you need to come up with an architect diagram for the house. Am I right? So these are your architects. Just like building a house, you may want to build an application in AWS, so you need the architects to come up with the design, the blueprint of the architecture. That is step one. Once the design is ready, going back to the example of the house, now you're going to engage contractors, masons, and folks to come and help build that house. Similarly, in the AWS construct, once you have the blueprint of the architecture ready, now you have to get the systems engineers who can build the servers, the storages, the networks, and all of that. And you also need the developers to come in and build the application that will run inside those servers and storages that you've created. So this is the second phase. Design is done, now is the build phase. Now once the build is done, going back to the example of the house, once the house is built, you collect the keys. Now you are the homeowners, and you're gonna maintain that house, right? The weekly cleaning and the chores and all of that is your responsibility. Similarly, in AWS, once the application is deployed, there is a system operations team that will operate the day-to-day operations. They will look at monitoring the servers, they're looking at backing up. The day-to-day operations is usually done by an operations team. So we talked about design, the build, and the operate. We have a learning path for designers, we have a learning path for builders, and we have a learning path for those who are going to do the day-to-day operations. These are the three core roles that we see today. And in addition to that, we also have security teams who focus purely on the security engineering aspect of things. How to ensure that all of these stuff that is set up in AWS runs in a secure fashion. Are you with me? So we have a learning pathway for them as well. Then we have big data folks. All of this application is generating a large amount of data. Now we need to go and analyze that data and make sense out of it and make new business decisions with that. So we have a learning pathway for big data teams. Not only that, all of these applications, once it's analyzed, all of this data needs to be kept somewhere, and then business users should be able to report from it, right? You need to run your reports. So analyzing that data is one stage, but taking all of that analyzed data and storing it into a data warehouse is another task. So we have a learning pathway for those database folks and data warehousing folks. Then you have another team of folks who are focused on building AI, ML applications, artificial intelligence and machine learning applications. So we have a learning pathway just for them. So we talked about the design, build, run. Then we talked about various specialty tracks. So these are the learning offerings that we have today, and we are continuously adding more. As we hear from you, our customers, as we release new technologies, we need to add more. Like AI, ML is the latest one that we recently added. We call it deep learning on AWS. That's the name of the course. So all these are offered as classroom trainings, where you come in, you learn, you try it hands-on in the labs environment, and then you take those learnings back. Now, as we work with our customers, they said, we send all these people into training. That's great. They've learned it. How do I validate those skills? How do I validate that they've learned it? Certification is one way to validate those skills. So people who go through these trainings, we encourage them to go and take certifications, and that would help validate that expertise. And it helps organizations to identify these talents and put them on projects. Remember I was talking about earlier, don't just send people for training, but build a clear pathway for them in terms of how they're going to take that skill that they've learned and apply it in-house. Now, the tool that's going to help to identify who these people are to be deployed in new projects is certification. And there are various customers that we work with. They have internal recognition programs for people who go through this training and get certified. Highly encourage you to do that as well. If you're running a team of technical people, build these recognitions programs internally so that people feel rewarded for the effort that they've put in and they feel recognized for the effort that they've put in. So talking about certifications, it aligns really well with all these different roles that I just talked about. Look at this slide bottom up. So the first pillar that you see is the cloud practitioner, which is the foundation. In fact, it is one of those trainings that is available on AWS.training webpage. It's called Cloud Practitioner Essentials. You can go back today, watch that video, and a couple of weeks from now, you can go and take the certification exam, and you can be a cloud certified practitioner. And it's not technical. It's meant for technical and non-technical people. So if you want one key takeaway, one action item to do after you go back, from a learning standpoint, would be that. AWS Cloud Practitioner Essentials is the name of the course. You can watch that, and you can take that certification exam. Now, for those technical roles that I talked about, architects, developers, and operations, we have certifications aligned to those courses. There are different levels, associate level and professional level. Now, one thing that I want to highlight, if you're talking to an IT person who says, I am cloud certified, ask them this question: are you professional level certified or associate level certified? If they are professional level certified, put together a plan to hire them. If you have them internally, keep a plan, put together a plan to retain them. The reason why I'm saying that is these certifications are not easy to get. They really test the actual hands-on skills, especially the professional level. So I make it a point, every time if I see somebody who is a professional certified, I'll stand there for a minute, shake their hands, and I said, awesome work. Today, that's the pinnacle of AWS certification. And we'll continue to add more. But what I'm saying is professional level certified AWS professionals out there are not many. And if they are professional certified, it's a very good sign that they have very deep skills in that area. Now, from an AWS certification standpoint, as I said, you need to also think about building a recognition program internally to retain these talents. We also have some benefits for AWS certified individuals. So if you are aspiring to be one of the AWS certified individuals, you will have access to a global community in LinkedIn. You will get to use these logos, certified logos, in your name cards, in your resumes. You would have access to practice exams. You get invited to exclusive events. Well, that's only meant for certified people. And when you come for a summit like this, all right, and you get to network with people, and if you have a certified badge next to you, it'll be interesting. I'm going to tell you, do it first and see for yourself the kind of recognition that you get when you walk around the floor. All right, so you also have access to the certified store where you can get some goodies and badges and, showcase some of those interesting T-shirts that says, I'm AWS certified. Folks, there is a huge shortage of skills. And I did mention at the start, it's like a precious stone. It's hard to find. So if you are one of the technical individuals who are thinking of putting together a learning strategy for yourself to build your career and to be relevant in future, because you heard in the previous session, if you were here, many jobs are changing. Many jobs are going to go away. There's one job that I can talk about that will continue to remain, which is somebody who knows how to operate this cloud, who knows how to build the applications in the cloud. So highly encourage you to take a look at this, and that's the whole purpose we are here. We want to build cloud skills, get companies to make the most out of this cloud. Having said that, even Singapore government and various other governments across ASEAN that I manage, they recognize cloud skills is the next big thing. And they are starting to work with universities. We heard about AWS Educate program. That's another initiative where we are working with universities, giving them the latest and the greatest tools and technologies so that they can impart the right skills to the students so that when they graduate out, they are cloud ready and they have the right skills. So that's a great initiative from university standpoint. But what about professionals that are already in the field today? That's why I said each of you need to have your learning strategy for yourself, or at least for your team, so that they have the right skills and they remain relevant in the future. That's all I had from my end. I really appreciate your time to listen through this, and I encourage you to go and think about what you've just heard and put together a strategy for your organizations. All right? Thank you for your time. I'm going to leave this slide on, which is the breakout session feedback. So please do submit your feedbacks. Love to hear your ideas on how to make this session better the next round. With that, thank you. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Denny. Our last request before you leave, please be sure to provide all of the speakers you saw today with feedback. Your badge has instructions. Thank you for your attention today, and we look forward to hearing about your success. Work hard, have fun, and make history.
Thank you, Alexa. We've come to the end of the conference, but before you go, do not forget to fill out your survey. We're going to have a lucky draw shortly, and we're going to draw 2 winners for the last 2 sessions. So last opportunity to win those AWS swag. So follow the details on screen right now, and we'll reveal the winners shortly. Thank you.